This is Breaking Down Security, and I'm Brian Brake. Welcome, listener. This is Brian and Mr. Boettcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hello.
Hey. So how's everything been with you so far this week?
Busy. Very busy. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Are you starting to feel the holiday season come upon you where we need to air our grievances and such?
Are you talking about a special cast with a bunch of other people?
Yeah. I'm really starting to feel that one too. Yes.
I can't wait.
Oh man, I'm loving it. So it's on the 21st. We're not gonna say what it's about yet because we don't want to jinx it and then something happen. But I think you're really gonna enjoy it. It's definitely gonna warm the cockles of your heart and really put yourself in this Christmas or Hanukkah or Festivus, Kwanzaa, Saturnalia, winter solstice kind of feel.
So were we just picking random topics, or you're just not telling me what the thing's about?
No, dude, you got to get on the Twitter chat that we have and discuss it like, real people. I mean, you've been added to it.
I know.
Okay.
But I don't recall any topics.
Well,
other than let's not do predictions. That's lame.
Yeah, predictions are lame. But yeah, I mean, I've got ideas. I'm, when I'm in the shower, soaping up myself, I'm thinking about things like that.
Yeah.
I think we just lost our PG-13.
Cool. All right. So we're going to talk about something, right? Related to security, right?
Yeah. My shower habits are not something that is of note. Yeah, it's not a thing we're going to talk about regularly. So, I don't know where did we come up with this? Where did we figure this out? Was this part of our security through obscurity talk?
No, I think you just sent me a link and you're like, "Hey, let's look at this," and I'm like, "Cool."
Okay, I must have come across this during my work day. I tend to
probably
surf and find a lot of things. So, I do vulnerability management for my company, as many of you probably don't know. And I had come across this at the MITRE group, who do the CVE numbers. When a vulnerability comes out, they give you a CVE dash, the year dash, a number. And that's the vulnerability record of note for your particular vulnerability. Very similar to Microsoft, how they do MS, 015/15 or whatever, something like that, or -15. So I found this website, and they have this thing called ATT&CK, which stands for Adversarial Tactics, Techniques, and Common Knowledge. Now the "and" in there is actually an ampersand, so they kind of make it look all fancy and stuff. But the idea is it's a model and framework for describing actions an adversary may take while operating within an enterprise network. So the idea is this is post, drop
exploitation.
Yeah. It's after they've already dropped a shell on your box and they've gained access or a foothold in your network. It lists out the various things, and they've broken it down into 9 or 10 different things that they can do.
Yeah.
To your network, to your hosts. And I thought it was quite interesting, and I didn't actually know that there were this many. And we'll have a link to the show notes for this. But it was really interesting, and I thought we'd talk about it tonight.
It's kind of similar to the Lockheed Martin document that is famous about the kill chain, right?
Yeah.
I don't know when that came out, but
they actually reference it at the very bottom of the attack page there. That's why I asked you if previous to the podcast if you'd actually read that. You said, you did a few years ago. But they mentioned the Lockheed Martin paper as well. So it's in good company. So maybe they started this after they read that and decided, hey, this is a good idea.
So it's at the top of the show notes, right?
Yeah, it's at the top of the show notes too.
I wrote that this morning.
You're killing me.
So I'm quoting from the website. While there is significant research on initial exploitation and use of perimeter defenses, there's a gap in central knowledge of adversary process after the initial access has been gained.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing is about post-exploit. What the attacker's methodology typically is, and going through all of those different types of attacks that they can do.
Well, it's good that they were able to categorize these because, many companies spend millions of dollars on what they call tactics, techniques, and procedures to help profile, bad guys once they get into your network. Because everyone has a specific MO, depending on what you're targeting, who's being targeted, what industry. If you know that, Agent X, the first thing he does once he gets a shell is he puts an interpreter on there and he sets up a logon script to automatically send a reverse SSH tunnel back to his box. You can take note of that at one place. I mentioned there's a couple of companies out there that do threat intelligence, threat analysis. They like to create code names for actor, bad guys like China and, Russian mob type threat agents. They use code names and stuff because it sounds cool, I guess. And, and the only reason they can do that is because they've seen it across enough enemies and what they do post-exploit that they know that, okay, well, having an interpreter shell and, using a login script to send a reverse tunnel back is indicative of Agent B.
Yeah, so it helps to profile the attacker so that you can better, try and guess his next move, right? Mm-hmm. So this particular attacker is likely going to go after, credit card data.
Yeah.
So, and of course he's attacking a credit card data holding company, and we need to get to the database or whatever and make sure that sucker's locked down before he gets there to that point.
Yep, that's
things
right.
like that.
Yeah, so if you know that Agent B is going on a tear and he's attacking various financial sites, and you might be a financial site, and then we need to be more vigilant about IPs coming from this part of the country or maybe this part of the world. So yeah, it's good to know that those things are there. Lockheed Martin, I guess their seminal paper down at the bottom talked about the cyber kill chain, which is one of the 7 stages cyber attack life cycle. They call it the kill chain. And what they've done here for the attack matrix is take it to a deeper level of granularity, which is always good. So,
yeah. So you want to go with the first one? Talk about persistence, or let's list them first. I mean, They have this attack matrix, right? And it has these different categories: persistence, then privilege escalation, then credential access, host enumeration, defense evasion, lateral movement, execution, command and control, and exfil.
Yeah, and some of these actually span multiple types.
When you get into the techniques, right? The techniques will be in several different ones sometimes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the ones that most attackers try to get when they go in is persistence. And I think we should probably talk about persistence because that's always a good thing. You don't want to be kicked out as soon as it's a bad thing to have persistence if you're a bad guy, but you want to be able to kick somebody out as soon as possible. And they break down the different types of attacks that can be used to gain persistence in a system. And the first one, of course, the easiest one is legitimate credentials. So, you've been phished or somebody clicks on a link from an I love you email and, you log in on a fake login site and you get the credentials from somebody who's an admin or who has super user access.
Yep.
And that one was pretty...
where you got that. You got that as the first one?
Yeah, I got that one as the first one because I can't.
Really?
Yeah. What do you have as the
because
first
you
one?
can't. Accessibility features.
Oh yeah, see, they put these in alphabetical order by technique. So if you go to the attack website on the left hand side under persistence, they put them in alphabetical order. So um, I picked that one because it was at the top of the graph,
The
but
matrix.
yeah, that top of the matrix. But it also spans 3 different parts of the quote unquote kill chain. It will allow you to get persistence. It allows you to do privilege escalation, and will also do defense evasion. Which, if we
I agree with the persistence and the defense evasion, but privilege escalation just by having credentials, I don't know. It depends on what kind of credentials you have. If you just have user credentials, it doesn't necessarily allow you to escalate to admin privileges. So anyway,
well, I mean,
just a thought.
What if you were able to log into a box and there's SUID scripts that are on the box that run or can run, and you modify that script, and when you run that script, it runs as root?
Well, I agree. It's a lot easier to escalate privileges if you do have legitimate credentials, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, you've already done privilege escalation because you had no credentials, and now you've got even user credentials. That's a form of privilege escalation. I mean, that's a bit of a reach, but I mean, if going from nothing to at least something is a foothold, So
yeah.
All right. So you wanted to talk about accessibility features. Did you notice that a lot of these are actually just Windows centric? I didn't, it looks like the first half dozen are very Windows centric.
It's kind of like all of them are pretty Windows centric to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just that. That's the feeling I got when I was reading it, because of course, they talk about DLL all the way through. That's Windows, and
yep.
A lot of Windows commands that are used: scheduled tasks, registry,
add monitor.
I think it'd be safe to assume that this whole thing is pretty much Windows based.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, I haven't read through the last few tactics.
Yeah.
But certainly the first half of them, I don't really see any Linux type.
Yeah, they're even credential dumping. They're talking about pwdump 7, credential editor, Mimikatz, gsec dump. Yeah.
So let's go through some of the techniques, right? You started with one. Well, accessibility features. Windows contains accessibility features that may be launched with a key combination. These may be older Windows systems, though. I'm not sure if the latest ones do this.
Yeah, I don't know if Windows 10 or 2012 Server allows for you to replace. I remember when we did our web app sec class where Kevin Johnson was talking about replacing Utiliman with like command.exe, so that when you hit Control or Windows U, instead of running Utiliman, it would run command.exe, and you'd have a shell that would run as system, because system is actually higher than admin or whatever. That, like you said, was an old vulnerability, and I thought they had patched that one a while ago. So this may not be fully updated to the later versions of Windows 10 and 8.1.
Then you have Ad Monitor. I like this one. The Ad Monitor API can be called to register DLL to be loaded at startup, another form of DLL injection. It's located in System 32 and yada, yada. And then it talks about the same functionality is achieved by creating specially formatted registry keys, and it gives you the key. So what I would do with that is make sure that registry key, which is a run key by definition, and then add that to my list of keys to monitor. So if anybody changes anything in that key, any values in that key, then I should be alerted on that, and then go investigate. What the heck's going on, and why is this key changing?
Yeah, so you could also set that in your audit logs to be parsed out later on, right? Like, oh yeah, somebody changed the value of print/monitors or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you could do that forensically too. I guess if you guys were using your log DM or whatever that you created with the Mr. Goff, that you can filter those things and look for those.
LogMD.
LogMD, that's right.
Yes. So yeah, you can monitor for those.
Yep.
BIOS may be modified to perform malicious activity. So I went ahead and clicked on BIOS, right, to get more details. Because it is a wiki, you can go clicking on stuff and get a little bit more detail. It says malware that performed BIOS modification, and it lists one. Download and execute files. It protects itself from removal, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you've got the skills, you could put a new BIOS in and flash it, and you've heard that the supply chain vulnerabilities or supply chain spywares, where depending on how tightly your tinfoil hat is wrapped around your head, you've got foreign governments intercepting switch and router hardware and putting on special BIOS or special ROMs on the systems, or to monitor people or things, or activities going on the computers. So
one thing that I don't like about this is that they say detection, right? So it says under detection, dump and inspect BIOS images on vulnerable systems and compare against known good images. They don't really tell you how to do that. They don't really show you a link to go to read more about it. So they tell you, hey, you need to do this, but they don't give you any further information on how.
Yeah, there's some missing information on some of these. Like like you mentioned, the ad monitor, that tells you specifically what to look for, but the other ones are like, oh yeah, you can do this.
So it's kind of incomplete in my book. Analyze differences to determine if malicious changes have occurred, and log attempts to read and write to BIOS and compare against known patch behavior. Well, how do you do that? I don't know. It's a good idea. Give me something, right? Give me a link. You don't have to explain it in great detail. Give me a link to a page that does, right?
Yep.
So like you said before the cast, maybe you need to contribute to this and make it better, right?
Yeah, and you can do that. You have to just email them attack@mitre.org, and I'm sure they'll give you access. It's like Wikipedia, so it's I don't know if it's Markdown or whatever they call it, that you can use to make it better. Even if it was a list of links to hey, accessibility features, this is how you make sure that Utiliman doesn't get, hacked, or, doesn't get changed, or, So there's a number of different attacks out there for this. Logon scripts. I love logon scripts because I've been using those since Windows, 98, to make those happen.
Yeah. And again, it's got more DLL injection, file handlers. I think I tweeted about that yesterday.
Yeah, I read that Twitter. What was that about? You were talking about some malware or something, right?
Well, basically, you can change the associations on your files. So if you have a potentially malicious file like a VB script, a .js, any other types of files that when you double click them by default they execute, you can change their association to be just text files. So when a user double clicks a JavaScript file, all that does is open Notepad. It doesn't pwn their system.
So
and then they can see the code there and they're like, oh, what's going on? Why this text file is useless to me? And they move on.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would that be an example of? Would it be like you open a JS file and instead of the JavaScript debugger or Internet Explorer or Edge or whatever it is, it would open, say...
No, by default on a Windows 7, for example, a .js file will be opened by WScript and it will execute.
Okay.
So change the .js association to Notepad.
Notepad.
Something like that.
That's a good idea.
So it'll open a Notepad or a VB script. If you don't write VB scripts or have any use to open up VB scripts and have them execute, change it to a text file.
There you go. So that's another reason.
Do it across the enterprise, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, you can probably set a GPO or something to set file associations accordingly. You may also want to take those. There's a ton of files in Windows that don't have any association to them, so you might want to set associations for files that don't have any program attached to them, to Notepad or to something. Nothing, because the last thing you'd want to do is to have, like, say, a .pif file. Somebody double click on it and it starts up command.exe with a tunnel back to another IP.
Yeah. So in my tweet, not only did I tell you, hey, there's something bad, but I gave you the command to go do it. Right.
Oh, well, look at you helping out. Yeah, you're just Hattie. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, there's a lot of DLL based stuff. DLL injection, search order hijacking, side loading. I remember that. Yeah. So yeah, it's
side loading is what, DLL injection all over again.
Yeah.
Hypervisor rootkit.
Hypervisor rootkit. Some of these are pretty, I wouldn't say hypothetical. I would just say the level of knowledge needed to exploit some of these things is the barrier to entry for just to get persistence is a little high.
Yeah. On some of them, yeah. Master boot record, right? There's another one where it says perform integrity checking on your master boot record. Take snapshots of your master boot record and compare against known good samples.
Yeah.
Report changes to master boot record as they occur for indicators of suspicious activity. How do you do that? There's nothing there. There's a link that goes to an article from Symantec. How do you pronounce that? Symantec. Right? Okay. Talking about master boot record malware, yada, yada. It's from 2011, I think. And then you click on some of the links there. It just tells you about the malware, but it doesn't tell you anything like how to detect it, indicators of compromise, anything like that. So yeah, it's good information to know of these things.
Yeah.
But then you got to do research on your own on how to detect these things.
Yeah, there's a lot of homework required. I mean, some of these are, like I said, they're kind of dud, having legitimate credentials. BIOS, that you can gain persistence using that.
A new service.
New service, yeah. Well, hopefully, if they're doing logging properly, they'll know that a new service was registered and
created. Yeah.
You'll get the Windows codes for those. So, it might be worth it to do some, do additional podcasts on discussing, how to do path interception, for instance. That was one that was on here that,
We could talk about run keys. Right? These are keys in the registry that have values in there that Windows says, okay, when I start up, I'm going to go to these areas in the registry and I'm going to execute whatever's in these run keys.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of malware and attackers in general gain persistence. They'll have a file on disk, right? And then they'll put a run key in your registry, and then when you boot up, the run key starts the file. And sometimes when you have this memory-only malware, the executable will delete itself and reside only in memory, and it'll delete the run key. So you've got no idea where this thing came from, or even if it's on the box. Then when the program is called to terminate by the system, when you're shut down, it'll write the run key and then write itself back to disk.
Yeah.
Right before the system shuts down. So
yeah, some brands of malware do that. Yeah. They mentioned scheduled tasks in here. They could have talked about cron on that, or
but they didn't. Like I said, the half that I read is pretty much Windows centric.
Yeah, a lot of this is just straight up Windows centric. So yeah, if you're a big Windows environment, you might want to look into some of these items to make sure.
I would say definitely you need to know about them, right? They've got WMI in here, right?
Yeah, I saw that at the bottom. Yeah, that's WMI just gets it's huge. It should probably be its own section because there's just so much you can do with WMI.
It talks about specifically event subscription, and we've talked about that on a prior cast where you would subscribe to a particular event to notify yourself of whatever. Let's see. WMI can be used to install event filters, consumers, and bindings with execute code. Right, there you go. So
yeah, we talked about that with the WMI. You can say, okay, when they've logged in, wait 10 minutes and then run this, or when they open Internet Explorer, do this, or
when the system boots, execute this. It's just like a run key at some point.
It's a lot like cron in many cases, or if your hard drive gets above 50%, even go ahead and do this, or if your fan comes on, you can make it do anything like that.
Virtually limitless.
It is virtually limitless. All right. So
we talked about persistence, and they list a bunch of techniques that attackers can maintain persistence.
Yep.
You want to move on to Priv-Esc?
We can either do Priv-Esc or we can go to command and control. I think that's another one that's very Windows-centric. But it's not Windows-centric in a bad way. I just think it's one that affects a lot of Windows boxes. I think we can jump around a little bit. That's one that's everything is self-contained. They're talking about things that command and control systems do, like using commonly used ports. They like to obfuscate the data. They may use encryption for that, or other methods of obfuscation.
So this is basically how they communicate to the compromised machine from where they are, the command and control.
Yeah, not necessarily exfil. That's a exfiltration of data is a separate section. So these are all the different. I guess these are the different attributes that command and control can do.
Yeah, different modes of communication.
Yeah.
Right, and different methods to use to obscure that communication, right?
Yep.
So let's see. One of them is commonly used ports. So that way, you use a commonly used port like port 80 or 443, so that way you can go virtually unnoticed because most people would use those ports. You run a netstat on a system that was compromised and see what typically is being used, right? And then you use those ports.
Well, you want only known ports open because you don't want to do things like allowing ping open because you can tunnel, anything over, ping, or you can actually tunnel anything over DNS as well. I mean, you got to watch the traffic going through those, not necessarily just, knowing that they use a commonly used port, but what traffic is going over those. If you've got a, I don't know, if you got port 25 and you're sending gigs of data a day over port 25, is it just all email or is it, data that is, important?
Right. Right. So a reason an attacker would want to use commonly used ports is, hey, there's a hole in the firewall for that port. I mean,
sure.
It's commonly used, right?
Oh, yeah.
Port 25. Yeah. Let's
absolutely
use that.
Yeah, that was something back when I was a little IT guy, back working for the government. I worked on a project and was a client of a project called NMCI, named Marine Corps Intranet. And I was extolling the virtues of my Navy command to port 22. And we got these brand new slick NMCI boxes, and I couldn't SSH to boxes from that box. And I was like, well, why not? I can FTP, but why can't I SSH? And I kept trying to find out why, Nobody would tell me because I didn't do enough Google dorking in my own time. But come to find out, if you've got port 22 open on a firewall, you can tunnel in and out through the firewall. You can, basically extend your network through port 22. Or you can do reverse, tunneling back through using Netcat or something like that. So, it's it was quite interesting to find out that commonly used ports like that are often abused in that manner.
Don't lie.
Okay,
there was no Google. There was no Google back then.
No. Wow, dude, that hurts. I'm not that old. Damn. I was just talking to another guy the other day. He's 17, going for his OSCP. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh, these youngsters, man. So, yeah, no, I mean, I was port scanning. I was a GS11, and I was port scanning, trying to find a port that would go to my server at home through SSH. And Gopher was open at the time, which I figured out, but that was a non-standard port that I didn't expect to see. So,
you naughty numbskull.
I did get caught. I mean, they were good. They did notice me, and they locked my account pretty quickly. So,
they have here custom encryption cipher. What do they mean by that? Adversaries may use a custom encryption scheme to hide communication. Simple such scheme is XORing the plain text. Fixed key to produce a very weak ciphertext. I guess it's a poor man's encryption. You just kind of security through obscurity, man. I thought,
wow, okay, security by obscurity.
Except this would be anti-security through obscurity.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, XOR. I cannot believe they used XOR on this. Yeah, you need to apply for this and actually fix some of this stuff, because using XOR or ROT14 is not something you should be doing. I mean, I guess if you're,
attackers really don't have, or don't need at this point, or do they really need strong encryption when they're exfilling data? I mean, you don't even notice the plain text most of the time.
That's true.
Right?
I mean,
I'm saying the industry in general.
Yeah, if you're watching packets, that's the only way you're going to notice that stuff's being kicked out. And how would you know something was being XORed easily? So I guess I can understand that.
So if I have a signature-based IDS, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for data going out. I'm looking for credit card data.
Sure.
And the attacker just simply XORs the plain text. I'm not going to see that signature.
Yeah.
It's simple, right? That's why it's on here.
Yeah, and I've heard it many times before. It doesn't have to be complex; it just has to work. So, if you spend a lot of time making AES 128-bit encryption with, cipher, CBC, running all that, you don't need to do that if you can just XOR the data out. Plus, it's probably faster XORing because then it doesn't show up as extra processor cycles trying to encrypt the data.
So here's how it works. It's just a cat and mouse game. I exfil data. I get away with it. Defender finds that somebody exfilled data. So they put in an IDS. I try it again and they catch me. And I'm like, how did they catch me? I break in again and I try XORing and it works, right? And then so the defender has to get better at what they do. They got to look at different kinds of signatures, like how much data is going across the wire, and looking at statistics that way.
Yep. Or doing it in bursts. So if somebody set a threshold to look for 5 or 6 gig files, or a constant stream of something, you want to send something maybe in bursts of 3 megs, or making sure that you don't want the good guys noticing your exfil of data or whatever. So or noticing what's going on with your botnet. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, so if I put a Tor node at work, that creates a lot of traffic, and
it does.
Yeah. That should get noticed.
That should get noticed by more than one person, hopefully. Yeah. So they talk about multi-band communication split between different protocols. They'd have one protocol for inbound command and control and another for outbound. Okay, so that'd be like using a blog site for the instructions on where to connect to your server over port 8727.
Or UDPN, TCP out sort of thing?
Yeah, that might work too, yeah.
Okay, peer connections. All right, a proxy peer-to-peer mesh network is a network of hosts which communicate to each other.
Well, that'd be like once you're able to gain lateral movement, you'll be able to do those things, right?
Yeah, and there's some malware that can do that automatically.
Yeah, yeah,
which is pretty nasty.
Yeah, if you've getting infections on a lateral level and it's moving through your network, you need to do what you can to start isolating those hosts, either by pulling network connections or figuring out how to block them from the software firewall.
By the way, speaking of not being thorough, not knowing, not giving all the information that might be needed, I've heard on. Did I already talk about this?
I don't know.
I've heard on a few podcasts talking about this crypto malware.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, you need to do backups, back up your data. And then if you do get hit with crypto malware, you don't have to pay the ransom. You can just refresh your data, right? You always have a backup.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that statement is, what do you think the first thing that crypto malware does before it starts encrypting your data?
You think it deletes the backups?
I know it deletes the backups. So, so if somebody does have backups going, and they'll have to have the right kind of backups, but if you have backups, you feel more confident because everybody's telling you back up your data. Then all of a sudden you're hit with crypto malware and your data's gone and your backups are gone too.
Yeah.
Right. So what most crypto malware does is delete your volume shadow copy, which is your Windows backup, your standard Windows backup. So if you have, say, 2 drives on your system, you have your C drive and your D drive, and you're backing up everything to your D drive every day, right? Using the standard Windows backup system, crypto malware hits that first, deletes it all, and then starts encrypting all your data on your C drive, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to have some sort of an offline backup, like.
I would hope that would. Yeah, I'm hoping that the regular Windows volume shadow copy is not your only method of backing up, especially if the data is incredibly important. I would have something online. I know that.
Well, you would, but a lot of users wouldn't. They'll take advantage of what they've already paid for, right? They paid for Windows, and Windows does offer a backup solution. Fortunately, the last crypto malware that I used, I got a pop-up that says, hey, I see you want to delete your volume shadow copy. Do you really want to do this? And if you click yes, then, well, it sucks.
Wait.
So don't click that.
You had malware actually ask you if you want to delete it?
No, the Windows system, I guess through a patch or something. They noticed that, and they don't allow the malware to actually do that without the pop-up. Kind of like if you want to delete a file and it says you need administrator access to delete this. Are you sure you want to do this? And even though you're an administrator already, it still gives you that warning.
Okay.
So, kudos to Microsoft for doing that. But
well, you were not an admin at the time though, right? You were just a regular user?
I was an admin.
Oh, okay.
Of that system.
Okay.
Testing particular, what does this file do?
Yeah. So they kind of go in both directions here. They say that command and control does commonly used ports. It also uses uncommonly used ports. It uses data obfuscation. It uses custom ciphers. It uses multi-layer encryption as well as custom ciphers. So it kind of tries to get everything on this. I mean, talking about peer connections and non-peer connections, and it's kind of funny how they've just kind of tried to cover all their bases in this one thing, because there's really no right answer for command and control. It's just kind of the sky's the limit. Once your CNC bot, infects a host, the host is pretty much at the mercy of whatever the command and control server wants it to do. Whether it be, making Bitcoin or becoming a Tor node or a dark web site or, whatever. So, yeah, I'm thinking maybe we should find somebody from MITRE to come on and discuss this, because it seems like it is quite incomplete. And if you find yourself wanting to fill in some holes, please either follow them at MITRE Attack, MITRE, they spell it English-like, attack, or, email attack@mitre.org and see if they'll give you access to start filling some of this stuff in, because it would be a great, it'd be great if it was less Windows centric, and it would be great if they had links to non-vendor sites that would help you understand how to fix various things.
That's true. I'm looking at one page on the execution, and it was last modified about 14 months ago.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not that old.
Yeah.
But some of the pages haven't been touched in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we go, I want to make some announcements. I'm going to be at HushCon. I won't be talking, but I'll be there. And I know Mr. Renderman's going to be there, which is going to be cool. I get to see him again from DerbyCon. And we had a little thing go on here in Seattle. There was a gentleman who had a run-in with the law, but was he works as a InfoSec security professional, and he's been given several opportunities to get a job, but because of what the article said was improper incarceration, he has a record that follows him around. He can't pass a background check. So one of the CEO of Fuzzmint, her name is Miss Tara. I don't know her last name, Vandalak. I apologize, Miss Tara. Kind of mobilized everybody here in the Seattle area, and we helped get him some money. And I bought a ticket, Bringing Down Security bought him a ticket to HushCon. So hopefully he'll be at HushCon this weekend, and we'll get to introduce ourselves and meet him. We're trying to get him back on his feet. We passed his name around to a bunch of the local areas here, including the newspaper article, to kind of help them understand his predicament. So it'll be fun to meet him. It was good to help out in whatever little way I could. If you're at HushCon, please find me, seek me out. It'd be awesome to shake hands and meet a listener, and I'll definitely be a fan of yours if you listen to us. So,
yeah, it's always hard to get back on your feet. Have you seen Les Mis?
Which one? The version on Broadway or the movie with Hugh Jackman? Hugh Jackman.
The story's practically the same, dude.
Yeah, well, true. Yeah, Jean Valjean. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Once you're labeled that way, it's hard to get your reputation back, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole another argument for pints of beer and such, but the U.S. correction system is not one for rehabilitation. It's for punishment, and then once you get out, you're still punished. So even after you've paid your time. So in my opinion, we need to do a better job of, getting over that stigma, because once you've got that on your record, you can't get, your life is irrevocably changed even after you've paid your dues to society. So,
and I got to say, if you want to help people, or if you want to help the industry by creating things like this, having things on a blog to help out the industry, make sure you put things in that are actionable. Yeah. Right. If you do a talk, give me something to go back to my organization and start implementing. Mm-hmm. Be helpful to the industry, and I think it'll pay dividends. Yep. So yeah, if you find yourself interested in, let's say let's say we were talking about the BIOS, the BIOS attack, right? That's listed on this page. Maybe you're interested in that. Maybe you want to go find out more information and you want to contribute to this. Make sure that you give everybody actionable content. Mm-hmm. So I can go and I can say, okay, here's a signature that I need to look for in my SIEM, or, in my endpoint solution, mm-hmm. This particular hash or whatever. Here's how you do it.
Here's a cool script on how you can detect for these kinds of things.
Yeah, and provide that script, right? So I can go run it in my org. Mm-hmm. So those are, very helpful. And if, I try to give that type of content as well.
Yep. That was a great takeaway from this. Yeah. That's all I've got for this week. I mean, Mr. Boettcher, how would people find you if they wanted to talk to you on the internets?
Yeah, you can direct message me on Twitter. I am at Boettcherpwned, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Yeah, but if they wanted to direct message you, then they'd have to follow you, wouldn't they?
No, I clicked the little checkbox, at least temporarily, that you can direct message me without following me. Or without me following you.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I definitely will have to do that because I've had to follow several people to get DMs. So on my Twitter, actually, is my name, Brian Brake, at Brian Brake. The official BrakeSec podcast Twitter is at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. We're on LinkedIn. You can link into us. So we have a LinkedIn group there that has, 20 or 30 people. We have a Facebook fan page if you want to discuss on there. We have a Patreon. If you find value in the podcast you just listened to, feel free to, it's like our tip jar, if you will, from Starbucks. If you'd like to drop a couple of bucks in the tip jar, we wouldn't hate on it. It's going to go to Hackers for Charity in a couple of weeks anyway. We don't really use it for anything, but people like to tip for good product. So we're on iTunes. If you are an iTunes fan, feel free to leave us some feedback over there. We have new feedback. I thought that was awesome. We had one person give us a 5-star rating, so that was very nice. And I think that was it for this week. One last thing I want to say. I went to a security gathering here at University of Washington, and I met a gentleman by the name of Braxton, which I didn't know, but he also does a podcast called Sound Security. Him and a gentleman by the name of Osman. So if you want to finish listening to our podcast, thank you. Go over to soundsecurity.io, SOUND security.io, and you can download and listen to theirs. They've been doing it for less than a year now. And, I'm not worried. I like it when we see people contributing back to the industry. So give them a listen if you can. And that was it for this week. And hit me up at HushCon, and we will talk to you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.